hitting that mark because it does feel good. It feels good to say that you've done it and you've worked really hard. And more than anything, more than the money you'll make or anything on that, you've learned a lot of really valuable lessons. And that is worth so much more than the commission you'll ever make on that transaction.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we introduce our speaker, I want to open it up for just one more win. Love to start this on a positive note. See who is winning out there, so we can congratulate you and keep the morale up into what we're going into, a spring market that I think we're all going to be very tired and energized at the same time, right? And so I see Kat's face. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. So if we can get one more win, we'd love to hear that. And then we'd love to jump on in. So somebody, camera on, give us a win.
Okay, so I don't have my camera on, but I will share my win, and that is overcoming this week of my like invisible ceiling because I have been like at the brink of new developments in my career, and it's really, really scary for me because it's uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh, do I need to do that? Is that really necessary? So I've kind of tried to talk myself out of it, and I've had like a big mindset shift, and I think it's just really positive, which has drove me to want to scale even further now. And so I hit that like really invisible comfort ceiling. And I remember when we had another mastermind on it, and I was like, this is my body telling me
Yep.
you're just a little bit uncomfortable, but that's where you need to be to move forward. So I appreciated that mastermind because I actually dove into that this week and used it to move forward.
You got to turn that thermostat up, right? You got to get yourself uncomfortable, and it's going to feel uncomfortable for a little bit. It's going to feel hot, and it's like, oh, this doesn't feel great. And then all of a sudden, you're going to have that breakthrough. And for those of you who don't know, we have our Generals Mastermind in Aspen next week, and Stephanie is coming as well. She hit the qualification benchmarks for that, and I am really excited to see what she's going to share on Empower after we go to Aspen and give your ahas, because it's going to be a very mind-opening experience, and it's going to really shift your mindset. So we're really excited for you on that. So let's dive in. Anna, do you want me to introduce Brett, our speaker? How about this? Brett, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Allison. So excited to be here with all of you guys. Please excuse, I am in the wonderful Grandover in Greensboro today with the winter leadership. So you see a hotel version of me today. But so excited to be here. I am a lender by nature, but on the flip side, I have created a framework in which helps somebody diagnose where they might be overcompensating in other places of their business. And so throughout the conversation, there are going to be some tough questions, some things that you're going to think about, but I'm really excited about it. And if you really take what I have to say and the weight of it for accountability, I promise you that you're going to find places in which you can put a little bit more effort to restructure, and you'll hear my restructuring as a word that will get used a couple times today. You will hear that there are places where you can actually go and restructure your business so that when you step away, you can, and it makes sense, and you can do the things that you need to do to grow. And so, without any ado, I'm going to dive in to what I have. I have scripted out a little bit, and then we're going to run through what I call a diagnostic session, helping you understand what the new framework is. This is not going to be one of those things where he's like, oh, here's a guy talking about lending. This is literally going to be, how do you design your business? What does your business look like, and how can you grow it, or what might be broken? And seeing what is broken is one of those things that can actually benefit where you are, because if you don't know where the cracks are, you can't fix them before they totally break and become fragile. So the biggest thing that I want to start with is that most people who struggle are not failing. They're functioning. Bills get paid, deadlines are met, the work continues. From the outside, nothing is obviously wrong. In many cases, things even look successful. Progress exists, at least in fragments. Momentum is visible, responsibility is carried. And yet something feels heavier than it should. And I think a lot of us have this feeling. We're getting successful, we're growing, and we're building, but something feels heavier than it should. Our effort keeps increasing, but relief never quite arrives. The margin for error shrinks, rest stops working the way it used to, decisions feel louder, and small disruptions carry outsized consequences. What once felt like competence now feels like endurance. I promise you that this isn't collapse, it isn't crisis, and it isn't a lack of discipline. Most explanations miss what's actually happening here. They assume that difficulty means something is broken. So they prescribe more effort. You guys have heard this every year in your business. More effort, better habits, clearer goals, stronger motivation. And when that doesn't help, the problem gets internalized. And then, as we all do, people conclude they're inconsistent, unfocused, undisciplined, or ungrateful for what they have. But that explanation doesn't fit the evidence. Because for all of us that are here who experience this friction are generally some of the most capable in the room. We're relied upon, we're trusted, we're the ones others turn to when things get complicated. If discipline were the issue, things would have already fallen apart. Instead, the opposite is happening. Our system is holding together because we hold it together. And that has consequences. Because when a system learns that someone will step in, it stops protecting itself. And this is where I want us to think about our structure. I'm going to read that one more time. Because when a system learns that someone will step in, it stops protecting itself. When someone constantly absorbs friction, friction stops being addressed, capacity becomes camouflage, reliability becomes permission, and over time, the system quietly reorganizes itself around the assumption that you will always compensate. Not because anyone decided this, not because it was malicious, but because it works. When systems are aligned, effort produces stability. When they're not, effort becomes structural glue. And that's one of those things I want to think about. We think about glue, we're like, well, that makes sense. That fills in the gaps. That's what it needs to be to hold the pieces together. Unfortunately, the glue of over effort was never meant to fill that gap. It substitutes for protection, clarity, and margin. Over time, effort doesn't just support the system, it becomes load bearing. And if for any of you that have used the wrong glue, you know that if that glue becomes what is holding the load, it eventually breaks. Not emotionally in all of us, but structurally. Because absence no longer just slows things down, it creates wobble. And wobble creates urgency, so you stay close, you stay responsive, and you stay available. From the outside, this looks like leadership. From the inside, it still feels like vigilance. This is where things get confusing. On paper, our systems are working, results exist, output continues, but everything requires more force than it should. Every win demands follow-up, every opportunity brings pressure, and every break creates anxiety. The gap between effort and relief widens slowly enough for us to ignore until rest no longer restores, until stepping back feels dangerous, until success stops producing safety. This is why advice that we generally get out there that helps build our systems eventually fails. It tells us to work harder, focus more, optimize routines, or push through resistance. The problem is effort isn't a neutral input. It changes what a system can tolerate. When effort is abundant, weak design stays hidden. Fragility is delayed, costs are displaced. And that's a piece that I want to focus on too with this, is that as we compensate inside our systems, as we look at where we are in our time, our costs of whatever it may be are displaced into something else that we don't realize. Persistence is misleading because a system can persist while becoming narrower, more brittle, and more expensive to maintain. It survives by transferring that cost into our time, attention, relationships, health, and optionality. That transfer is rarely visible all at once. It accumulates quietly, often disguised as responsibility, often praised as commitment. The pattern is simple. When the system can't support the load, the person does. And the more capable the person, the longer this can continue until the cost becomes impossible to ignore. And once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. I want to start with that. That was the intro that I built for the framework I'm doing. And I want to be a little bit more vulnerable than ChatGPT tells me I'm allowed to be as I go through this. And all of us have been there as we build stuff out. I found this framework because it's what I needed as a loan officer, as somebody in real estate, as somebody building a business. We continue to push and we push and we push and we push and we say, hey, I'm not disciplined enough. I am not working enough. My effort isn't there enough. And then slowly we burn out. I know that all of us have been there at some point in time. And it wasn't until I started changing my structure of how I think about it. And now, when I talk about structure, I'm not just talking about the way in which, like, the company you're with, or the team that you're with, or the structure that Allison might create for her team is, yes, that's structure. But the structure is also like, what do you do with your time? What is your routine? And how are you fatiguing out of decisions? One of the things that I think a lot of us don't talk about is decision fatigue. And I'm going to use a fun example. How many of you in the morning go into your closet to figure out what you're going to wear? And you're like, well, I could wear any of these things. And you almost burn out on the decision of, well, what am I going to wear today? If you look at the Steve Jobs of the world, the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world, their closet literally is the most boring closet you've ever seen in your entire life, because it's like the same stupid shirt and the same pair of pants and the same shoes and the same socks, because they realize they can't spend time on those decisions. And so that's one of those things that I want to bring in, and I want to ask that question now. I want to see who might have that decision fatigue, or if you've recognized that you've made enough decisions, at what point in time during the day do you fade out?
I absolutely fade out around 2:30. And it's not just like my natural cycle. It is that I compress everything into my day. And by 2:30, 3 o'clock, I just don't have the bandwidth anymore. And I've had to learn, like, and that's okay. But hearing this, it's like, well, what friction can we remove to maybe expand that time frame? On the other side of it, it's like removing friction from situations also kind of doesn't allow you to grow, because sometimes we remove so much friction that that's why many people's capacity doesn't expand fast enough, in my opinion. So it's kind of like an oxymoron, and I'm trying to follow to figure out, like, where do I fit into this, right? Like, how can this framework help me see it differently?
Yeah, and I saw somebody else said 3 o'clock. I'll tell you what, I actually fade out at 3 o'clock too. Like, if you want really, really good structuring, like, business decisions, please come to me before 3 o'clock. After 3 o'clock, it's like an admin time frame for me, because it's like I'm not getting puzzle pieces built at that point in time. And that is a part of decision fatigue. Interesting. So you put
Anna perks back up.
that's just an energy drink she needs. Anna, you're muted.
I just had this weird end of day cycle. I learned it a couple years ago because I would die at like 2 o'clock, and then I would just sit at the office, and then at like 5:30 or 5 o'clock, when it was like time to like leave, I would get energized again, and then I didn't want to leave. So I did learn that natural like cycle through the day, which was really helpful because now I'm the same way. Like, use my prime ideation time to move the needle forward, and let me save all my admin follow-up stuff for later in the day when I don't have the capacity.
And I think that that works for some of us too, because our industry at large does kind of focus. We have to show homes after people get off work. We have to answer the phone calls. Like, for those of us that aren't bankers and actually work past 4 o'clock, we have to take phone calls after those, because that's when the questions come in. But those conversations can be structured in a way that they're not using our energy. They're conversations that we have all the time, so that when it comes to, we're showing a house as agents, you guys have done it 100 times. It doesn't take a whole lot to open that door, but you can have those conversations and structure those things, or bring the new leads in, or build your business, or do all the things that actually is income producing after that, and not necessarily have the brain power in that. And Allison, I am going to answer your question too, of like how you fit into this process and what this looks like. Because the structure is so important, the biggest thing that we do is we always compensate downstream. And so I use the word compensation because it's not the, hey, I'm getting paid compensation that a lot of us think about, but it's we compensate downstream, and downstream in my model is it is your identity, your structure, your income or the value you produce, your assets that you can use, and assets are generally more produced as stored agency. It is things that you have stored so that you don't freak out about the decision that you have to make, and then your reputation or credit. A lot of times people will stick a lot of weight into something downstream, that value they're creating, or as we see it, and I'll use this as agents coming in at the beginning of the industry, and sometimes it's okay. Like compensation is intelligent. I don't want anybody to walk away from this to be like, I compensate, I'm wrong. My model actually removes the guilt. But when you're new, you actually have to compensate with reputation because you don't have any. And so you jump on a team that has reputation, but you're borrowing it. You're borrowing somebody else's structure. You're borrowing somebody else's reputation as you figure out your identity, as you build up your own structure to build your own value. And that's when, and I'm sure all of you have seen it, at some point in time, you start with a team and you're like, I can now go on my own, or I can now build my own team. But sometimes you need to start with somebody else's credit, somebody else's structure, somebody else's routine, reputation, and then you build yours. But as long as you're doing those things to build upstream, that's what we call it, upstream fixes, you're actually fixing the problem. And so with that, I want to talk about compensation. Compensation isn't abstract, it's a pattern. You can see it in behavior. You see it when effort increases, but structure doesn't. When work expands to fill every gap because boundaries feel risky. When decisions stay centralized because delegation feels slower than just doing it yourself. When problems are solved repeatedly instead of just being removed. When reputation absorbs friction, the system should be handling. When you become the place where ambiguity goes to die. It looks like leadership, it looks like ownership, like responsibility, and it is because it works and it gets reinforced. People trust you more, they rely on you more, they escalate to you faster, and without anyone intending it, the system reorganizes around your availability. That's how compensation works. And so you can go into compensation or you can look at resolution. Compensation keeps things going, and resolution changes what's requiring them to keep running like that. Compensation feels productive and resolution often feels uncomfortable. And that's why we won't always go to it. So a couple of questions for everybody to think about is this. If you disappeared for 30 days, no messages, no decisions, no problem solving, I'm pretty sure I just gave everybody anxiety in the room. What would actually happen? Right? That is the thought. And that is where the structure really comes in. If you were to disappear for 30 days, you couldn't pick up your phone, you couldn't go through anything, what would happen?
Can we open this up to like see what people's responses are? Does anybody want to say what they think would happen? My first initial reaction is, while people are thinking, my first initial reaction was like, it'd be good. I have a system in place. And my second was that I actually think that my agents would grow faster and they would be better because there is this friction that they know that I remove for them. And so if I weren't there, not for 2 or 3 days, but for 30 days, I think we would come back and they would realize I'm empowered. I actually know the answer. I don't need to go straight to the person that's going to make it easier for me, right? They're going to be able to grow. And that was kind of how my brain as a team leader started thinking. So I'd be interested from different perspectives of what other people would think.
Yeah, who's out there? Who would like to share? If you stepped away, and let's make it a little bit easier. Let's say it was 7 days. If you stepped away for 7 days, what would happen?
I think my gut reaction is I probably wouldn't be able to function because of my anxiety of being away for a full 7 days. It would panic me just because I am very plugged in. I too am a team leader of about 20 agents. So I would really panic in that aspect, but I too kind of will piggyback off Allison. I feel very confident in the systems that we have in play. And I know that when I would get back from my 7 or 30 day hiatus, whatever it was, I'd probably have a detailed list of everything that happened from all of my admin. And everybody would say, oh, we're fine. Like we made it. We're okay. But myself personally, I probably wouldn't be okay because I don't have those systems in place for myself, but I have them in place for my team.
I think that
Really good
that's great
perspective,
feedback.
Stephanie. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's
And-
great feedback too, because it's your structure is in place to hold you from what you said, but you're not getting the piece that you're supposed to get through the process. And so there's a piece of your structure that might still be failing. And that is understanding what you could do for 7 days to unplug that could be healthy. Because, you know, what happens, God forbid, a car accident or something like that. It's good to know your system works, but could you do it?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, honestly, is because me personally, I thrive in chaos. Like if I'm like sitting on the couch being a lazy bum or something like that, I'm more anxious doing that because I just feel like there's so much that I want to be doing and could be doing. So when I unplug and take that time, even though you need it almost feels more daunting than all of the workload that we have in my mind.
Me and Anna are laughing, Stephanie, because I wrote her, I said, that's because she's a Sagittarius. Just chaos,
I
control.
was like, yeah, me too. Chaos, no couch
Chaos.
sitting.
Control. Ross, I saw that you unmuted. Do you have something? What is your thought if you were to say, like, tomorrow you found out that you have to go off the grid for 30 days? What would happen?
First off, if I was going off the grid, I hope I got a gun in my hand, hunting somewhere fun. And honest, so I'm in the lending world also, and I think we're in a little bit different structure than y'all as far as like we do have to get out in front, be present, be seen. However, you know, Brett, you'll probably agree with this too. The agents that use you the most, they're still going to use you if you're not available to answer, but your assistants, your partners are. You know, in the past when I've, you know, checked out for a while because you kind of got to do that for some mental sanity, things still roll. You know, it normally takes a couple days to get over the anxiety of being gone. And once you learn, like, okay, stuff's still going to happen, you know, it's just going back to that tiered system of we have help for a reason. We need to lean on it for a reason. If we take too much on our shoulders, we're not going to be able to carry this. You got to spread the weight. So if I left tomorrow and disappeared, you know, between my processor, my production partner, and the staff that we have, you know, deeper as needed, as long as the agents were still reaching out to them and not to me, we would still be moving forward like nothing happened. So the bigger part is the fear of stepping away and not being seen for 30 days is because it's the relapse of, hey, I had a great vacation, but now it takes 3 months to catch back up from it. You know, and I know the agents, y'all all see that too when you get out of town. It takes a while to recoup. So in my eyes, it's not so much what am I missing in the 30 days? It's like what's coming at me the next 60 since I've been gone for 30.
My
But
aha,
I
Brett,
think
if I could jump in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ross.
no, I was going to say, I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, it'll still roll as long as you know, as long as the calls come in, the team is going to do their jobs. But it's the after it's the post 30 days when I'm back that I think you would see a little bit of a dip.
My aha was actually, so coming from a team leader standpoint, of course, my brain is like, yeah, we've got this. Like it's the system's in place. And then you have Stephanie in your response that from a team leader aspect, we're like, yeah, we've got it. The fear that I guess I would have, because I still have a few listings. So from a production standpoint, if you actually said right now, tomorrow, I have to leave, what I'm doing is compensating downstream. I'm not compensating upstream. Like you're saying we really have to look at like what systems are ahead of us and that are above us that can really hold this system, because what I'm thinking is, oh, I see Catherine on this call, I see Anna on this call, I see Stephanie and Laura and all of these people that I can say, okay, great, you got this for me, do you have this for me? Well, guess what I'm doing? I'm putting my reputation in their hands. I'm putting my clients in their hands. I need them to compensate for me. Whereas if I were to restructure and rethink about this, what systems are in place that I don't have to go and ask a favor downstream? I know that my brand and everything is up here. And so I don't feel this as much from a team leader because I feel like our systems are really in place. My team does not need me. They do not. But I still have production, and that production 100% would need me to spend 24 to 48 hours preparing and having people downstream to compensate for me. So that's my mindset shift is I actually am running two separate businesses. And business over here, where I think maybe Stephanie's feeling, is because we actually have to compensate downstream.
I am like proud daddy right now at this like moment because I've been working on this framework for a long period of time, and to have somebody like you literally summarize how it works and how it can benefit and like what to think about, like in a diagnostic session is like the yeah, like exciting moment for me. Because you're 100% correct. Like all of us have different things, and the biggest thing about this framework is it isn't just the realtor. It isn't just the loan officer. If you think about this framework and Allison, everything that you beautifully summarized, what about our lives with our kids? What about the business we want to create? What about wherever we may be? We hear in social media all the time the difference between being in like working in or on your business. Do you have the structure in which you can, the load is no longer placed on me, the load is placed on the structure that we've created. And so, hey, something is going on. Anna, you talked about being able to pop off and go and watch a show in our little interview, like up to New York. And that's because your structure allowed you to do that without having to worry about it. And that, I think, in my opinion, is a really, really good example of a structure that's holding its weight and bearing instead of bearing down on you. And so I want to leave you guys with one final diagnostic question. You guys don't have to answer this one, but I do want you guys to think about it. And it is this, or these questions. Just notice what comes up when I ask these. When something breaks, where do you instinctively intervene? Do you try to fix the result, or do you try to change the condition that made the result necessary? Do you step in because it's faster, or because the system doesn't know how to respond without you? And here's the key part. If you stop intervening the way you do now, would something important finally become visible? Or would everything simply fall apart? So as you go through your week, those are some questions to ask yourself, just to notice, just to think. When something breaks, where do you instinctively intervene? And if you stopped intervening the way you do now, would something important finally become visible, or would everything fall apart? And I think all of us across all of our businesses, Ross talked about it. It's not necessarily what am I going to miss in that 30 days. It's the potentially what's the extra effort I'm going to have to do when I come back from that to get back on track. And my answer to that is if you have the right structure, even stepping away for 30 days, you'll come back and you'll still be able to be income producing. And it takes some time to get into that structure where you can feel comfortable stepping away for that 20 to 30 minutes without it hurting your ability to produce values or the asset side stored agency in a way that you actually have options. And that's why they talk about saving 6 months of your expenses, because if you have 6 months of your expenses and you need to make a shift, you can make that shift without urgency and actually think and make the right identity structure alignment and move forward in that possibility. And so what I want to leave with everybody is just thinking about and visualizing inside your system as you go. And it might be your family system, it might be your business, it might be you as a team lead, or it might be you in production. Take a look at your structure. Is your structure aligned with your identity? Because if your identity and structure are disaligned, I promise you, your structure will break eventually because your identity and alignment have to be in congruence with each other. And once you have a good structure, you can finally start looking at what value do I produce and what options do I have to build reputation. And so I'm so grateful for the chance that I have to be with you guys, but I do want to leave you with just notice. What are you intervening in? And can you stop and still be okay?
Very powerful. Anybody have anything or any kind of comments or feelings on this topic?
I'll throw one thing in there real quick. To go kind of exactly to your point, the first of the year, I had a meeting with my team and I was like, listen, if the deal's not dying this second, don't get me involved. Y'all figure this out because I got to focus on what I need to do. I'm here to jump in with both feet, but don't get me involved with the little stuff. I feel like our business is like the movie Men in Black. There's always an alien trying to blow the world up and we're saving it. I don't want to know until, 5 seconds before the world blows up. That's when I get in and save it. You know what I mean? Because it's the stress you carry with you. It's just not fun. There's
Well,
always a pay
it,
stub that's not been full, or someone had a late payment or something stupid that we can always fix, but I just don't want to know about it till I absolutely have to. And that's just leveraging that back on the teams, letting them do their jobs.
it's leveraging it back on the teams, but for all of the team leaders and team members on this call, like what I think is so important to understand is that you don't grow by having somebody come and save the day. And it starts with little decisions. And if
Right.
you jump in and solve the problem every single time, it's what Brett started with. Removing the currents and frictions, that's our job. It really is. But helping them grow the capacity, like children don't learn by us putting bumpers around them and saying, go into the world, you'll never get hurt. They learn by getting hurt and realizing, oh, associating, here we go. And you start to expand your capacity and your knowledge and your vocabulary. And like if all we do is remove the friction and the current every time, there's no growth. And so there's two
Yeah.
sides to this. You've got to let them and empower them, no pun intended, to learn and to expand. And then on the other hand, we are also here to put our systems in place to leverage them. So there's really two versions of this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, with my children, I've got two wild ass little boys, and I get tired of telling them stop, stop, stop. So I adopted the motto of they heal quicker than they learn. Let them do it, let it figure it out. They won't do it again. And I've been doing that with work as well a little bit. And what actually happens is the growth of the kid by learning and growing is the same thing that happens with my teammates. The
Yep.
more responsibility I put on them, the better they are. Better
Yep.
they are, the better we are. The better we are for y'all as agents, the better we are as parents, as people, etc. So growth is stepping away and letting they need to grow too. Your team
Mhm.
needs to grow as well. And by putting the power back in them, it helps everybody grow together.
I agree. It's very powerful.
So I'll chime in real quick. The last thing that I want to add is one of our key values that we have on our team is learning to be resourceful. That's one of like our key words that we have for the team. And I think if anything, when all of this like gets piled back, like one of the things that you need to take time on as a person, whether you're a general agent, a team member, whatever that looks like, it's learning to be resourceful. Because if you can learn to be resourceful and figure things out on your own, there is nobody that can stand in your way. And I think that's one thing that I learned, and as a hard 10 years as a solo agent is you just got to do it. Nobody's going to do it for you. And I think in the world that we live in with such instant gratification all of the time right at our fingertips, we lose a little bit of that like grit that it takes to be resourceful. And if you can just like kind of hone in on that and practice your skills on becoming resourceful, then you do feel like you can step away without all of that anxiety and everything that you feel. That's kind of where I honed into and it was career changing for me.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And that is really the whole aspect of the asset or the agency stored. So when you look at this model, it's really about regaining your agency, regaining your ability to choose and have that optionality. But if you don't have the right structure in place or I use assets because I come from the lending side and it kind of makes sense because when you look at a house as an asset, but also a team is an asset, a structure is an asset, your reputation is an asset, and they can all help you downstream. It's not just money, but really what you're doing is you're storing the ability to have options.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And no matter where you are in this path, you have an upstream and you have a downstream. Every single person. Day one, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, wherever you are in whatever career, everybody has an up and downstream. So take the time to look around, like you said, and start kind of analyzing your day and your structure and figuring out where we can start to help everybody build those blocks around themselves to live a more leveraged life. So, Brett, thank you very much. We appreciate you. This was very impactful. I was just texting people saying, oh my gosh, what an amazing conversation we're having. So that's what the point is. Every Wednesday is to bring people in that give different perspectives, that remind us who we are, what businesses we're building, and we're doing this for our families and for the lives that we want to live. And so we appreciate you all taking the time out of your day every Wednesday to be with us. Brett, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so
If you
much.
need us for anything, give us a call. Go ahead, Brett. Sorry.
If anybody wants to hear more about it, you can go to thelendinglad.com. It is not a lending website. It is about the framework, and you can book a call with me and we can go through your individual story if you want to learn more.
We will link that in the chat here before people pop off. I'm doing it right now. And if you guys need anything, reach out. I'm trying to do it right now. And you guys call us if you need us.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, y'all. See ya.
Thank you,
Bye.
Brett.